My name is Becky, I'm 27 years old, and I'm standing at the funeral of the man my parents spent 15 years telling me was dangerous. My hands won't stop shaking as I grip the letter Mr. Garrison left me before he died. The first line makes my blood run cold. Your parents lied to protect themselves, not you. Everything I believed about my childhood, about the night that changed everything when I was 12, was wrong. The man they called a monster was the only one who tried to save me. Before I share this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you believe family secrets can destroy lives, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories that will change how you see the people closest to you. Let's dive into how the neighbor everyone feared became my unexpected guardian angel. Growing up in suburban Detroit, I thought I had the perfect life. My parents, Frank and Diane Morrison, were successful real estate developers who gave me everything a child could want. We lived in a beautiful colonial house with a pool, 3-car garage, and perfectly manicured lawn. The neighbors envied us, teachers praised my parents' involvement in school events, and from the outside, we were the American dream personified. Everything changed the summer I turned 12. That's when Mr. Garrison moved into the house next door. I remember watching from my bedroom window as the moving truck pulled up. He was a quiet man, probably in his 50s, with graying hair and tired eyes. He didn't have much furniture, just boxes of books and some medical equipment that made my mother gasp when she saw it being unloaded. My parents' reaction was immediate and extreme. That very first night, they sat me down at the kitchen table. My father's face was serious in a way I'd never seen before. That man is trouble, Becky. You are never to speak to him, never to go near his property, and if you see him outside, you cross to the other side of the street immediately. But why? I asked, confused by their intensity. Our neighborhood was friendly. We had block parties and barbecues. Everyone knew everyone. My mother's hands clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. Because we said so. Some people are dangerous, and we know things about him that you don't need to know. Just trust us. But 12-year-olds are curious creatures, and forbidden fruit is always the sweetest. I started watching Mr. Garrison from my window. What I saw didn't match my parents' warnings. He spent most of his time reading on his porch, feeding the stray cats that wandered through our neighborhood. He planted a small vegetable garden, and always waved at the mailman. When Mrs. Chun from 2 houses down struggled with her groceries, he helped her without being asked. The strange rules my parents imposed grew stricter. I wasn't allowed to play in the front yard anymore. They installed new locks on all the windows facing his house. If his name came up in conversation, they'd change the subject immediately. Other oddities began to pile up. Late-night visitors would arrive at our house in expensive cars, staying for hours behind closed doors in my father's study. I'd creep to the top of the stairs, trying to catch fragments of conversation. Words like Chicago deal and cleanup and liability floated up, making no sense to my young mind. One evening, I heard my father arguing with someone on the phone. I don't care what Henderson thinks. We're not moving again. We've established ourselves here. When he saw me in the doorway, his face went pale. How long have you been standing there? I lied and said I'd just come to say goodnight, but the fear in his eyes stayed with me. The first time I defied my parents' rules came 3 months after Mr. Garrison moved in. I was walking home from school when I saw him collapse in his driveway, groceries scattering across the pavement. Without thinking, I ran to help. Up close, I could see he was younger than I'd thought, maybe mid-40s, but something had aged him prematurely. His hands shook as I helped him sit up. You're the Morrison girl, he said, his voice gentle. You shouldn't be here. Your parents won't like it. Are you okay? Should I call an ambulance? He smiled sadly. No ambulance. Just help me get these groceries inside, then go home. And Becky? Be careful. Your parents, they're not wrong to be cautious, just not for the reasons you think. I helped him inside, noticing how sparse his house was. Medical supplies covered one table, and filing cabinets lined an entire wall. Before I left, he pressed a book into my hands. For a curious mind, he said. When I got home, my mother was waiting on the porch, her face twisted with rage. Where were you? Mrs. Patterson saw you at his house. Before I could explain, my father appeared. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. It was the first time either of my parents had ever hit me. You disobeyed us, he said, his voice deadly calm. You have no idea what you're messing with. That man is dangerous in ways you can't understand. My mother grabbed my shoulders, tears streaming down her face. Please, baby, please just listen to us. Stay away from him. Some secrets destroy families, and we're trying to protect ours. That night, I lay in bed with my cheek throbbing. The book Mr. Garrison gave me hidden under my mattress. It was a collection of mystery stories, and inside the front cover he'd written, "The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Question everything." Those words would haunt me for years to come. By the time I turned 14, our house had transformed into a fortress. My parents installed security cameras that seemed more focused on Mr. Garrison's house than our own property. They monitored my every move, checked my phone multiple times a day, and required detailed accounts of where I'd been and who I'd talked to. My friends started calling me Prisoner Becky, not knowing how accurate that nickname was. The isolation was suffocating. I wasn't allowed to join after-school clubs because they couldn't supervise me there. Sleepovers were out of the question. Even my internet access was restricted to homework sites. My mother quit her job to become my full-time warden, driving me to and from school, sitting in the parking lot during my classes. One rainy Thursday, everything shifted. I was helping my mother clean the garage when I found bloody clothes stuffed in a garbage bag in my father's car. The white shirt was soaked through with dark stains, and there were what looked like scratch marks on the sleeves. My hands shook as I held them up. My mother's face went white. "Put those down. Now. Whose blood is this?" My father appeared in the doorway, saw what I was holding, and quickly took the bag from me. One of my clients had a hunting accident. I drove him to the hospital. "It's nothing sinister, Becky. You watch too much TV." But hunters don't wear white dress shirts, and the blood pattern didn't look like any hunting accident. That night, I heard my parents arguing in hushed tones. "She's getting too old," my mother said. "She notices things." My father's response chilled me. "Then we need to be more careful." Despite their surveillance, Mr. Garrison found ways to reach out. Books would appear on our doorstep, always when my parents were gone. Each one contained cryptic notes in the margins. "Truth hides in plain sight. Question the narrative. Your instincts are correct." I hid them under a loose floorboard in my closet, reading them by flashlight after my parents went to bed. These books became my lifeline. Through them, I learned about psychology, criminal justice, and investigative techniques. It was like Mr. Garrison was training me for something, preparing me for a truth I wasn't ready to face. The books made me look at my parents differently. I started noticing inconsistencies in their stories, gaps in their explanations. 3 months after I found the bloody clothes, my parents discovered my hidden library. I came home from school to find them sitting in my room, the books piled on my bed. My mother was crying. My father looked murderous. "Where did these come from?" he demanded. I tried to lie, but they already knew. My mother held up one of the books, Mr. Garrison's handwriting visible in the margins. "That man has been poisoning your mind against us. We've tried to protect you, but clearly, we've been too lenient." What followed was a bonfire in our backyard. They made me watch as they burned every book, the smoke carrying away the only things that had made me feel less alone. My father gripped my arm, his fingers leaving bruises. Some secrets destroy families, Becky. Remember that. That night, unable to sleep, I stared out my window at Mr. Garrison's house. He was standing at his window too, watching our backyard where the ashes of his gifts still smoldered. Even from a distance, I could see the worry on his face. A week later, I woke to strange noises in our backyard. Creeping to my window, I saw my parents digging near the back fence. They were burying something wrapped in plastic, working by the light of a single flashlight. My father kept checking his watch while my mother sobbed quietly. When they finished, they held each other for a long time before going inside. The next morning, the news reported a missing businessman named David Chun. He'd been working on a major development deal in the area. The reporter mentioned he was last seen leaving a meeting with prominent local developers. My parents watched the news in silence, my mother gripping her coffee cup so tight I thought it would shatter. Such a shame, my father said finally. David was a good man. I hope they find him. My mother nodded, not meeting my eyes. Yes, a real shame. They seemed unusually cheerful the rest of that day, taking me out for ice cream, buying me new clothes, acting like the perfect parents. But I couldn't stop thinking about that wrapped bundle in our backyard. When I glanced at Mr. Garrison's house, he was watching from his window, and the look on his face told me he'd seen everything too. My 16th birthday should have been a celebration of freedom. Instead, it became the day I truly understood the prison I lived in. My parents threw an elaborate party, inviting what seemed like the entire neighborhood. There was a DJ, catered food, even a small fireworks display. Everyone was there except Mr. Garrison, whose exclusion was so obvious that Mrs. Patterson asked about it. Oh, you know how it is, my mother said smoothly. Some people just don't fit in with the community spirit. My best friend Melissa pulled me aside during the party. She'd been my closest friend since kindergarten, the only person who didn't judge me for my parents' strict rules. Becky, I need to tell you something weird. Last week, I was sneaking back from Tyler's house at like 3 in the morning, and I saw your dad's car at that abandoned warehouse on 8th Street. There were other cars there too, and they were loading something into a truck. My blood ran cold. You must be mistaken. My dad was home. I know his license plate, Becky. It was definitely him. Before I could respond, my father appeared beside us. Melissa, your mother is looking for you. Something about leaving early? Melissa looked confused. No, she said I could stay until. Now, my father said, his smile not reaching his eyes. 3 days later, Melissa's family announced they were moving to California. Her father had gotten a sudden job offer he couldn't refuse. When I tried to visit Melissa to say goodbye, her mother wouldn't let me in. Melissa texted me once. I'm sorry. They made us. Then her number was disconnected. I knew my parents were behind it. The question was how, and what they were hiding that was worth making a family disappear. That night, I confronted them at dinner. What did you do to Melissa's family? My mother dropped her fork. What are you talking about? They're moving because of you. What did you threaten them with? My father set down his wine glass carefully. You're being dramatic. People move. It happens. She saw you at the warehouse. What were you doing there? The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my father stood up, walked to his study, and returned with a bank statement. He'd transferred $50,000 to Melissa's father. Sometimes, he said quietly, people need incentives to make the right choices. Your friend's family needed a fresh start, and we helped them get it. Just like we've helped you by keeping you away from harmful influences. Like Mr. Garrison? My mother started crying. You don't understand, baby. That man, he knows things. He's dangerous to our family. What things? What have you done? That's when my father snapped. He grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me. Enough. You want to know what we've done? We've protected you. We've given you everything. And all we ask is that you trust us. I broke free and ran to my room, locking the door behind me. They pounded on it for an hour before giving up. But when I woke up the next morning, my door was off its hinges, and my father was sitting in my desk chair. You're going to learn to trust us, he said calmly, even if we have to break you first. What followed was a week of house arrest. They took my phone, my computer, even my books. I was allowed out only for bathroom breaks, with my mother standing guard. Meals were brought to my room. No explanations, no negotiations, just isolation. On the 7th day, sirens wailed outside. Police officers were at our door, responding to a welfare check. I could hear Mr. Garrison's voice. I haven't seen the girl in a week. She hasn't been to school. I'm concerned. My parents were smooth as silk. My father invited the officers in, offered them coffee. My mother called me downstairs, and I came, knowing that defiance would only make things worse. Officers, my father said. As you can see, Becky is fine. She's been home with the flu. Teenage rebellion, you know how it is. She's been telling people dramatic stories. The officers looked at me expectantly. I wanted to scream the truth, but my father's hand on my shoulder was a warning. His fingers found the bruises they'd left, pressing just enough to remind me. I'm fine, I heard myself say. Just been sick. After the police left, my father turned to me. Mr. Garrison has become a problem. Problems get solved. That's when Wayne started visiting more frequently. Wayne Kowalski was my father's business partner. A man who always smelled of cigars and violence. He'd look at me with cold eyes, like I was a puzzle to be solved or a problem to be eliminated. During one of his visits, I heard him tell my parents, "The old man knows too much. He's been digging, asking questions. My contacts say he's been talking to people in Chicago." "Then we need to remove the problem permanently," my father replied. My heart stopped. They were talking about killing Mr. Garrison. I had to warn him. That night, I waited until my parents were asleep and crept out through my bedroom window. I'd made it halfway across the yard when security lights blazed on. My parents were waiting. The confrontation was violent. My mother held me while my father raged. "You would betray your own family for a stranger? You're planning to kill him." My father's laugh was bitter. "Kill him? We're not murderers, Becky. We're survivors. And sometimes, survival means making hard choices." "I'll go to the police." My mother's grip tightened. "You're our daughter, but we'll do what's necessary to protect this family. Even from you." 2 days later, I was on a plane to Vermont, enrolled in St. Catherine's Academy for Troubled Girls. It wasn't a school. It was a prison with uniforms and textbooks. Letters were monitored, phone calls supervised, and any mention of Mr. Garrison or my family's secrets meant punishment. For 2 years, I existed in that bubble, counting days until I turned 18 and they couldn't legally hold me anymore. Mr. Garrison tried to reach me. I know because the administrators would mention inappropriate correspondence from an older man that they were intercepting. They made it sound predatory, but I knew better. He was the only person who cared about my safety, and they'd cut him off completely. Freedom came with my grandmother's death. I was 18, technically an adult, when St. Catherine's informed me I was required to attend the funeral. They couldn't keep me prisoner anymore, though my parents had tried to extend my enrollment. The academy's director handed me a bus ticket and a warning. "Your parents have informed us that you're welcome home only for the funeral. Any deviation from appropriate behavior will have consequences." The house looked exactly the same, but it felt different. Darker. My parents had aged in those 2 years. My father's hair was completely gray, and my mother had developed a nervous twitch in her left eye. They greeted me with stiff hugs and faker smiles. "Welcome home, sweetheart," my mother said. "Your room is ready." My old room had been transformed into a guest space, all traces of my existence erased. But I wasn't there for nostalgia. While my parents dealt with funeral arrangements, I had work to do. My father's office was locked, but 2 years at St. Catherine's had taught me skills my parents never intended. The lock picked easily, and I slipped inside. His filing cabinets were locked too, but the safe behind his desk was what drew my attention. It was new, high-tech, the kind of safe that held serious secrets. I tried every combination I could think of. Birthdays, anniversaries, nothing worked. Then, on impulse, I tried the date Mr. Garrison moved in. The safe clicked open. What I found inside changed everything. There were photographs of Mr. Garrison, but they were old, dating back decades. In them, he wore a federal badge. FBI. There were newspaper clippings about major crime family convictions, cases where the lead investigator's name had been redacted. But one photo showed Mr. Garrison receiving a commendation, and the caption identified him as Agent Michael Torres, instrumental in breaking the Torino family empire. My hands shook as I kept reading. There were investigation files, and my parents' names appeared repeatedly. Frank and Diane Morrison, suspected of money laundering for the Torino family's Chicago branch. The files detailed a complex operation. Real estate developments used to clean dirty money, legitimate businesses hiding criminal enterprises. Everything clicked into place. Mr. Garrison wasn't some random neighbor. He was a federal agent in witness protection, and he'd moved next door to watch my parents. All these years, he'd been gathering evidence, protecting me from afar while my parents built their criminal empire on blood money. The next file made me sick. Photos of 3 men, David Chun, Roberto Valdez, and Martin Cross. All missing. All had been business partners of my parents who'd disappeared after disputes. I recognized the date on Chen's file. It matched the night I'd seen my parents burying something in the backyard. Find what you're looking for. I spun around. Wayne stood in the doorway, his bulk filling the frame. My mouth went dry as he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Your parents are at the church. They'll be gone for hours. Plenty of time for us to talk. I tried to run, but he was faster. His hand caught my throat, slamming me against the wall. I told them you were a liability. Should have dealt with you years ago. They'll know it was you. He laughed. Your parents? They're the ones who asked me to check on you. Make sure you weren't doing exactly what you're doing. His grip tightened. Tragic, really. Grief-stricken girl, home for grandma's funeral, decides to end it all. I couldn't breathe, couldn't fight. Black spots danced in my vision. Then the window shattered. Mr. Garrison stood there, older and grayer but still formidable. Let her go, Wayne. Wayne dropped me, reaching for his gun. But Mr. Garrison was already moving. The fight was brutal but brief. Wayne might have had size, but Mr. Garrison had training. When Wayne finally lay unconscious, Mr. Garrison helped me to my feet. We need to go. Now. My parents. We'll be back soon. And when they find this scene, you won't be safe. I grabbed the files from the safe. I'm not leaving without evidence. He smiled grimly. That's my girl. Always thinking like an investigator. We went to his house, where I discovered the full extent of his operation. One room was entirely devoted to surveillance equipment and evidence boxes. Years of watching, documenting, building an airtight case against my parents. I came out of witness protection for this, he explained. The Torinos destroyed my family. My wife and daughter. They killed them when I refused to back off the case. When I learned Frank and Diane Morrison were setting up shop here, I knew it was my chance for justice. But why protect me? His eyes softened. You were 12 when I arrived. Same age as my Sophie when I lost her. I watched you grow up in that house of horrors, and I couldn't let them destroy you too. Every book I left, every time I called the cops, it was to keep you alive long enough to escape. He showed me everything. Financial records proving money laundering. Recordings of my parents discussing murders. Photos of them meeting with known criminals. The evidence was overwhelming. We take this to the FBI tonight, he said. By tomorrow your parents will be in custody. What about me? They're still my parents. He touched my shoulder gently. Biology doesn't determine family. They chose their path. Now you choose yours. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. My parents had built their empire on manipulation and murder. They wouldn't go down without a fight. The call came while Mr. Garrison and I were organizing evidence. My mother, sobbing. Becky, please come home. Wayne attacked your father. There's blood everywhere. Please, I need you. Mr. Garrison shook his head, but I was already reaching for my coat. Despite everything, the child in me still wanted to believe my mother's tears were real. It's a trap, he said. I know. But what if it's not? Then take this. He handed me a small recording device. If you insist on going, at least get evidence. The house was dark when I arrived. No ambulance, no police cars. Just silence. I should have turned back, but I pressed forward. The front door was unlocked. Inside, my parents sat in the living room like nothing had happened. Wayne was there too, very much conscious and uninjured. 2 other men I didn't recognize flanked the doorway. Hello, sweetheart, my father said. We need to talk. My mother's tears were gone. Her face was cold, calculating. Sit down, Becky. Where's the emergency? The emergency, my father said, is that our daughter has been conspiring with a federal agent to destroy her family. I tried to run, but the men grabbed me. They forced me into a chair while Wayne zip-tied my wrists. the recording device pressed against my ribs, hopefully catching everything. "We know you were in the safe," my mother said. "We know you've seen the files. The question is, what do we do about it? You could let me go. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again." Wayne laughed. "She thinks this is a negotiation." My father stood, pacing. "You know, we never wanted children. You were an accident. But we thought, maybe a daughter would be useful. Someone to carry on the family business. Instead, we got you. A liability," my mother added. "Always too curious, too moral. We tried to break that out of you." "By killing people? By turning our home into a criminal enterprise?" My father shrugged. "By surviving. Do you know what it's like to grow up with nothing? To watch your parents struggle and die in poverty? I swore I'd never be powerless again." "So you became murderers?" "We became powerful," my mother corrected. "The Torinos offered us a way out of mediocrity, and we took it. Every developer in this city is dirty, Becky. We're just better at it." "Mr. Garrison's family wasn't dirty. You killed an FBI agent's wife and child." My parents exchanged looks. "That wasn't us personally," my father said. "But yes, the organization handled that problem. Just like we're going to handle this one." Wayne produced a gun, placing it on the coffee table. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take this gun, go next door and kill Agent Torres. Murder-suicide." Grief-stricken girl, manipulated by a predatory older man, snaps and kills them both. "I won't do it." My mother leaned forward. "Yes, you will. Because if you don't, we'll kill him anyway. But first, we'll make him suffer. We'll tell him exactly how his wife and daughter died. Every detail. Then we'll kill him slowly and you'll watch." "You're insane." "We're practical," my father said. "You do this, and at least it's quick. Painless. Either way, he dies tonight. Your choice is whether you die with him." I felt the weight of 18 years of manipulation, control, and fear. They'd isolated me, terrorized me, shaped me into their perfect victim. But Mr. Garrison had given me something they hadn't counted on, knowledge. "Can I say goodbye to Mom first?" I asked quietly. "If I'm going to die, I want to hug my mother one last time." My parents exchanged glances. My mother nodded, probably thinking it would make the murder-suicide more believable. Grief-stricken daughter seeking comfort before her final act. She stood, opening her arms. I lunged forward, but not for a hug. The zip ties were tight but not unbreakable. St. Catherine's had taught me that too. I snapped them against the chair arm and grabbed my mother, spinning her between me and Wayne's gun. "Shoot and you hit her," I snarled. My father stepped forward. "Becky, don't be stupid." "Stupid?" I learned from the best. I backed toward the door, using my mother as a shield. "All those years you taught me to be careful, to think ahead, to survive. Thanks for the lessons." Wayne tracked us with his gun. "Boss, don't shoot," my father commanded. Despite everything, he couldn't watch his wife die. I made it to the door before my mother twisted, breaking free. "Get her." I ran. Behind me, I heard Wayne chambering around, my father shouting orders, feet pounding after me. Mr. Garrison's house was 50 yards away. Might as well have been 50 miles. The first shot shattered the night. Wood exploded from the tree beside me. The second shot caught my shoulder, spinning me to the ground. Pain like fire raced through my body. I crawled, leaving a blood trail, vision blurring. Then Mr. Garrison was there, returning fire. More men emerged from sedans I hadn't noticed. "FBI, drop your weapons." The night erupted in gunfire. I pressed myself to the ground, watching Wayne take a federal bullet to the chest. He dropped, his blood mixing with mine on the pavement. My father tried to run but was tackled by agents. My mother stood frozen, hands raised, finally out of manipulations. Mr. Garrison knelt beside me, pressing his hand to my shoulder wound. "Stay with me, kid. Ambulance is coming." "Did you get it?" I gasped. He pulled the recording device from my jacket, smiling despite the chaos. "Every word. You did good." Sirens wailed closer. Red and blue lights painted the neighborhood. Neighbors emerged from houses, witnessing the Morrison family empire crumble in real time. As paramedics loaded me into the ambulance, I saw my parents in handcuffs, their perfect facade finally shattered. Mr. Garrison climbed in beside me. "I'm staying with her," he told the paramedic. Then to me, "You're safe now. It's over." But we both knew it wasn't. This was just the beginning. The bullet had torn through my shoulder, missing anything vital but leaving damage that would take months to fully heal. I spent a week in the hospital under federal protection, drifting in and out of consciousness while the news exploded with the story. Suburban crime family exposed. Real estate empire built on blood. Daughter turns state's evidence. Mr. Garrison never left my side. When I woke from nightmares about Wayne's gun, or my mother's cold eyes, he was there. He told me stories about his real life as Agent Michael Torres, about the family he'd lost, about the years he'd spent preparing for this moment. "After Maria and Sophie died, I wanted to die too," he admitted one night. "Threw myself into dangerous assignments, hoping someone would finish the job. Then I saw your file during the Morrison investigation. 12-year-old daughter, no criminal involvement. I knew the Torinos pattern. They'd either recruit you or kill you by 18. So you came to protect me." "I came for revenge," he corrected. "But watching you fight to stay good in that house of evil, it gave me purpose again. Protecting you became more important than vengeance." The media circus was insane. Reporters camped outside the hospital, offering money for exclusive interviews. The FBI assigned me a handler, Agent Patricia Knox, who helped me navigate the legal maze ahead. The prosecution needed my testimony to ensure convictions, but testifying meant reliving every moment of horror. My father's network didn't wait for trial to strike back. The brake lines on Agent Knox's car were cut. She discovered it during routine maintenance. Dead animals appeared on Mr. Garrison's doorstep with notes, "She's next." My hospital room required round-the-clock guards after someone dressed as a nurse was caught with a syringe full of potassium chloride. "They're trying to silence you," Agent Knox explained. "Your testimony is the key to everything. Without you, it's just circumstantial evidence." My mother broke first. Maybe it was seeing me in the hospital bed. Or maybe it was self-preservation, but she flipped. Her lawyer negotiated a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. The story she told made everything I'd discovered look tame. The Morrison crime empire spanned 20 years and 3 states. My father hadn't just laundered money. He'd orchestrated murders, bribes, and extortion schemes that reached into city government and police departments. The night I was conceived, they were celebrating their first million in blood money. Every birthday gift, every Christmas present, every college fund deposit came from suffering. Frank changed after his brother threatened to expose us. My mother told prosecutors while I watched through one-way glass. Martin had found God, wanted to confess everything. Frank couldn't let that happen. So he killed his own brother? Made it look like a heart attack. Martin had a condition. Frank just helped it along. That's when I knew there was no going back. She revealed 17 murders, 43 money laundering operations, and a web of corruption that took down half the city's construction industry. Properties I'd grown up visiting were built on graves. The charity galas my parents hosted were covers for criminal meetings. Every aspect of my life had been a lie. But the worst revelation came when she discussed their plans for me. Frank wanted to bring Becky into the business when she turned 18. Start her small, maybe intimidating witnesses or managing clean money. I fought him on it. That's why we sent her to St. Catherine's, to keep her away until we could figure out another solution. What kind of solution? My mother's paws stretched forever. Frank said if she wouldn't turn, she'd have to disappear. Like the others. He had Wayne research making it look accidental. Agent Knox gripped my hand as we listened. My own father had planned my murder. The boarding school wasn't protection. It was a stay of execution while they decided my fate. The trial became national news. I testified for 3 days, detailing 18 years of psychological torture, isolation, and witness crimes. The defense attorney tried to paint me as a troubled teen seeking attention. But the evidence was overwhelming. My recordings from that final night played for the jury. My mother's confession corroborated everything. Miss Morrison, the prosecutor asked, why did you finally decide to cooperate with Agent Torres? I looked at my parents. My father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. My mother wept silently, because I realized the monsters under my bed were the ones who tucked me in every night. Agent Torres didn't save me from a dangerous neighbor. He saved me from my own family. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. My father received life without parole for the murders, plus consecutive sentences for racketeering, money laundering, and attempted murder of a federal witness, me. My mother got 15 years with possibility of parole and 10 for her cooperation. As they led my father away, he looked at me one last time. No apology, no regret, just cold fury that I'd destroyed his empire. My mother mouthed, I'm sorry, before disappearing into custody. The investigation expanded. More bodies were found on properties my parents had developed. The FBI excavated our backyard, finding David Chun and 2 others. Each victim's family finally had closure, answers to questions that had haunted them for years. Mr. Garrison officially came out of witness protection after the trial. The Torino family's power was broken, their leadership imprisoned or dead. He could finally use his real name again. Though he admitted Garrison, felt more natural after so many years. I inherited everything after the criminal assets were seized and victims compensated. Millions in clean money remained, a fortune built on blood that I didn't want. I donated it all, creating funds for victims of organized crime, scholarships for children escaping criminal families, and support programs for witnesses. You could have kept it, Mr. Garrison said as we signed the last donation papers. No one would have blamed you. Every dollar would remind me of where it came from. I'd rather start clean. He smiled proudly. Sophie would have liked you. You have her sense of justice. We returned to the old neighborhood one last time. The Morrison house stood empty, for sale signs declaring it priced to sell. Crime scene tape still fluttered from the backyard where the FBI had found the bodies. Neighbors avoided eye contact with me, ashamed they'd lived next to killers and never known. Mr. Garrison's house was being packed up. He was moving to Florida, starting fresh near the beach. You could come with me, he offered. I've got a spare room. Could use help feeding all these cats I've somehow acquired. I considered it. No family left, no home, no ties to anything but trauma. But I'd already decided my path. I'm starting the police academy next month. Agent Knox pulled some strings. His eyes lit up. Following in my footsteps? Someone needs to stop the next Frank and Diane Morrison. Might as well be someone who knows what to look for. He pulled me into a hug, the first real parental embrace I'd ever received. I'm proud of you, kid. You survived hell and came out stronger. I had help. A guardian angel disguised as a dangerous neighbor. We stood there in the driveway where I'd first helped him years ago. 2 broken people who'd found family in the most unlikely circumstances. Blood might make relatives, but choice makes family. And I'd chosen him, just as he'd chosen me. 5 years passed faster than I'd imagined. I graduated from the police academy with honors, specializing in financial crimes and organized crime investigations. Agent Knox became my mentor, guiding me through the FBI application process. The same agency that had saved me now became my calling. Then came the call I'd been dreading. Mr. Garrison, my chosen father, was dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave him weeks. I took emergency leave and flew to Florida, finding him thinner but still sharp, still surrounded by rescue cats he couldn't help but save. Took you long enough, he joked weakly. Been keeping these furballs alive just to see you again. We spent 3 weeks together. He told me stories about his real family, showed me photos of Maria and Sophie I'd never seen. Sophie had wanted to be a teacher. She'd loved cats too. You're like the daughter she never got to become, he said one evening as we watched the sunset. Makes me believe in something bigger, you know? Like maybe this was all meant to happen. He died peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by the strays he'd saved and the chosen daughter who'd saved him right back. At his request, the funeral was small but meaningful. Fellow agents from his old life came to pay respects. Some cried not just for Michael Torres, but for the family he'd lost and the years he'd sacrificed for justice. I stood at his graveside, holding the letter he'd left me, afraid to open it. Agent Knox stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder. He talked about you constantly these last years, called you his redemption. Finally, alone in his house, I opened the letter. My dear Becky, it began. If you're reading this, then my journey has ended but yours continues. There are things I never told you, truths I protected you from until you were ready. First, your biological parents' crime network was larger than even the FBI knew. Evidence in my safe deposit box, key enclosed, reveals connections to human trafficking rings they kept hidden from their Torino partners. I couldn't pursue it while protecting you, but now you can finish what I started. Second, I've been sick since before I moved next door. Terminal cancer, they said. I had maybe a year. But then I met you, and somehow I lasted 15 more. You didn't just save yourself, Becky. You saved me, gave me purpose when I had none, family when mine was stolen, redemption when I deserved none. Third, I've left you everything. Not much money, but all my case files, my notes, my life's work. In my closet, you'll find boxes labeled Sophie's future. I'd saved for her college, her wedding, her life. It's yours now. Use it to build the life she never could. Fourth, there are 13 more families like yours operating across the country. My final gift is their names and locations. You'll know what to do. Finally, know this. Biology doesn't make a parent. Every time I called the police, left you books, or stood between you and danger, it wasn't duty. It was love. You were never the Morrisons' daughter in any way that mattered. You were mine, and I couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become. Don't mourn too long. There's work to do and children to save. Be their guardian angel, as I tried to be yours. All my love. Dad, Michael Torres, but Garrison to you. I cried then, really cried, for the first time since that night my parents were arrested. Through the tears, I explored his closet, finding the boxes he'd mentioned. Photos of Sophie at every stage she'd reached, and phantom photos of stages she'd never see. Report cards he'd saved, drawings she'd made, a Father's Day card declaring him the best daddy in the whole world. And money. Not a fortune, but enough to build something meaningful. The case files were extensive. 13 crime families using children as shields, raising future criminals or victims. Names, addresses, evidence he'd gathered while officially retired. Even dying, he'd never stopped working to save others like me. At the bottom of the last box, I found his FBI commendations, his service weapon, and a photo. Him with Maria and Sophie at the beach, all smiling, unaware of the horror approaching. Paper clipped to it was another photo. Me at my police academy graduation, cut from the newspaper. He'd written on the back, "My daughters." I spent the night planning. By morning, I'd made my decision. The FBI had a special unit for crimes against children. With Mr. Garrison's files and my unique background, I could make a real difference. Children trapped in criminal families needed someone who understood, who could see the signs others missed. 6 months later, I stood before a congressional committee testifying about organized crime's impact on children. My parents' case had opened doors to legislation protecting minors from criminal relatives. Becky's Law, they called it, ensuring children of convicted criminals received mandatory counseling and oversight. Miss Morrison, the senator asked, what would you say to children currently trapped in these situations? I thought of 12-year-old me, terrified and alone, convinced the danger came from outside our house. I'd tell them that sometimes the scariest monsters wear familiar faces. That family isn't about blood but about who chooses to protect you. And that somewhere someone is working to save them, even if they can't see it yet. After the hearing, I drove to Arlington National Cemetery. Mr. Garrison rated burial there for his service, though he'd chosen Florida to be near the beach he'd shared with his first family. But I'd had a headstone placed for him anyway, next to Maria and Sophie. Michael Torres, it read. Federal agent. Husband. Father. Guardian angel. I placed 3 roses on the stones, one for each member of the family that should have been. Then I added a 4th, for the family that actually was. The cats he'd left behind were waiting in my car, all 5 of them. I'd kept every one. Unable to abandon anything he'd loved. I found their new operation, I told his headstone. The Valdez family in Texas. They have 3 kids. I'm going in undercover next month. I touched the stone gently. I'll save them, Dad. All of them. I promise. A wind rustled through the cemetery, and for a moment, I could swear I smelled his cologne mixed with the sea breeze he'd loved. Maybe it was imagination, or maybe guardian angels get to check in sometimes. Either way, I felt his presence, his approval, his love. Walking back to my car full of rescue cats, I thought about the title of my story. My parents had hated our neighbor, called him dangerous. At his funeral, I discovered who he really was. The father I'd needed, the protector I'd deserved, the hero who'd sacrificed everything to save a stranger's child. But more than that, he'd shown me who I really was. Not Frank and Diane Morrison's daughter, prisoner of their criminal empire. I was Becky Torres in every way that mattered. Guardian angel in training, protector of the innocent. My parents created a victim. Mr. Garrison raised a warrior. The cats meowed impatiently as I started the car. 5 rescue cats and 1 rescued daughter. Heading home to plan our next save. Mr. Garrison was gone, but his mission lived on. Every child I saved would be his legacy, proof that love is stronger than blood, choice more powerful than circumstance. The real monsters in my childhood weren't the strangers my parents warned me about. They were the ones who tucked me in each night, who signed my report cards and attended my school plays while planning murders in our basement. But the man they called dangerous? He was the only real parent I ever had. And now, it was my turn to be someone else's guardian angel. If you've ever discovered that someone you were taught to fear was actually protecting you, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. These experiences shape us in powerful ways. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding light in the darkest places. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them most. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, sometimes our greatest protectors come disguised as the very thing we're told to fear. Until next time, stay safe and trust your instincts.